What really helped me in kind of my own personal adjustment really was beta blockers for me personally. And, the first audition I took, it was best I've ever played.
And for all the moms listening who think that you're on drugs, can you explain what beta blockers are? Today, I'm talking with a fellow master's student at the Beanan School of Music at Northwestern University. He is an esteemed trombone player with a bachelor's from the University of Southern Mississippi. And this part is my favorite because I get to brag about the guest and make them uncomfortable while they sit here in silence. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. He has won the second trombone audition with the Mississippi Symphony Orchestra in 2024, has been a finalist for auditions such as the U.S. Army Band and West Point Band, among others, and has been named as the 2026 Tanglewood Trombone Fellow. Richard Horne, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
First of all, I didn't appreciate fully before I wrote down your name and prepped some stuff about you that your last name is Horne and you play the horn.
Mm.
So is this like a John Legend situation where you changed your name?
Well, that would be a pretty cool story if that were true. But no, I mean, that's just the Horne family. We kind of have a little lineage going from, it's kind of American. So like my grandparents, all kind of live natively in America, and that name, honestly, I don't really know where it kind of stems from. Might be cool to kind of go back and take a look at that. But no, just what was given to me by birth.
Excellent. I mean, in medieval times, I think that last names were supposed to be related to the profession of the person. I don't know if that's true. But your dad is a musician?
No, actually. So
no, I totally made that up. Cool.
No. Funny enough, actually, my mother's a musician. She did she did singing for really kind of the first 18 years of her life in Sweden, actually. So my family comes from kind of all over. It's like from far south, far north. And she actually had a professional singing career. She did like several CDs. She had several gigs with a bunch of like really great Swedish artists. That she did for a very long time till she met my dad. She went to the States, had a couple of things happen. She had some of her bags stolen and some misfortune. And thankfully she met my dad at the time. And she kind of had to make a choice between continuing her music career and moving to the States. Thankfully she did move to the States. Here I am. But really, in terms of musical background, that's really kind of as far as it goes. I didn't really grow up in a really musical family. It was I would say pretty similar to how most people kind of grow up.
Did you start in school band?
I did. Sixth grade, middle school band.
For us, it was fifth grade. But I know some schools, they start in kindergarten.
Really?
Did you play piano or anything like that?
No, honestly, I suck.
Oh, right. Forced to take piano class in undergrad.
Oh, yeah.
You enjoyed that?
That was a bit of a struggle. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I started piano when I was 6, and my parents forced me to do it because they read some study that playing piano makes you good at math or something like that. Well, that's some sense, I think.
Maybe. How are your math grades?
My math grades were good, but that's just because I'm a try-hard and, teacher's pet and all that. Yeah, can't help it. Do you wish you started earlier, or do you feel like it was good that you had did you do a lot of sports and stuff as a kid?
I did. I occasionally played soccer when I was really, really little, but I wasn't very good at it. I was playing with people younger than me. That's to give you an idea of kind of how I was at that. Part of me does wish I started earlier, but then, I'm kind of reminded that, well, even if I started earlier, I don't think I quite had the responsibility yet to actually take it as seriously as, now, like obviously I would now. Really, I didn't really start taking trombone seriously till like maybe midway through high school. So kind of a bit of a late bloomer for me. I kind of had a bit of catching up to do at that time.
Why did you, I had a similar thing where I think it was my sophomore year in high school, I decided that I wanted to try and be professional. And that was kind of a relief for me because I didn't have to worry about, I still worried about grades, but I felt like, oh, I'm a musician. Like if I don't do well in physics class, it's okay. I've got my life figured out. But why did you decide to be more serious? What happened?
Well, so I was kind of back and forth about what I really wanted to do. And I found some other career paths that like maybe in science, maybe computer science, that might have been something that would have interested me. But, nothing really kind of stuck to me more than music. Music was something that consistently every day I'd really look forward to going to. It brought me a lot of joy. And also too, it was just something I was pretty naturally good at. And, it made me feel good being good at something, being like first chair in All-State in like 8th grade, going to All-State in 9th grade.
It's okay. Richard has lots to flex about.
Yeah. But All-State's All-State. It's kind of a great stepping stone in, a musician's young development. But what really kind of changed was over time, I was able to meet some people and I started realizing, this is actually a career field that I could really do well in if I put good focus in the correct areas,
Hmm.
right? Because you have orchestras, you have military bands, you have premier bands, all these different kinds of groups that, to me at the time, I realized, oh, those actually some of the salaries for those actually pay a lot more than I
Hmm.
actually would have guessed before, and realizing that it was something I actually got very comfortable living in while continuing to enjoy what I do is something that really was like, you know what, maybe I can do this. Maybe
Hmm.
maybe this can be something that I can do long term and be really successful in.
Yeah. Um, yeah, music is a scary thing. I think a lot of us get into it, like you said, with all state and feels good to be really good at something. Um, there's a little danger with that you get into it kind of for the wrong reasons because it feels good to win things. But yeah, it's really hard to have a comfortable life, and I think the good musicians I know, they just love it. Like they can't live without it. My teacher has described it as it's an obsession. It's kind of like painful if you don't do it kind of thing. But there's a lot of behind the scenes to being a musician, and you and I are grad students at
Mm.
conservatory. So, I mean, do you love all of it? Like, do you love practicing? What there's got to be sort of a behind the scenes thing that you don't love, but it's just worth it to you. Do you have that kind of like passion? What is it that? Yeah, can you
Oh,
tell us more about that?
Oh yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, naturally, as you get older too, it's like some things maybe start becoming a little bit repetitive. Like, part of like I love playing in ensembles. I love playing to a complete product, especially with my colleagues around me. Especially this like my most notable example is like whenever the Northwestern Symphonic Wind Ensemble, we recorded a new album for with Viet Cong's music. That that to me is where kind of the fun side of music is because we're all trying to achieve the same goal, the same end product. But where it gets hard for me is definitely in the practice room, mainly because I have to, something that we all have to kind of learn is that, a lot of these sort of end products will not come quickly with just like with many things. And especially whenever there's a problem that you can't just quite fix it in one session or two sessions, and you have to continue to be very deliberate and continue to try to tackle that problem, that could get, for me, it gets really draining because sometimes whenever I don't get results as quickly as I'd like it to be, it kind of becomes a mental game
Mhm.
of, oh, well, I could just ignore it and hopefully it won't be a problem. Or, stick to my guns. This is something that maybe, will become very important later on that I need to make sure to address now instead of
Mhm.
putting it off for later. And it's kind of dealing with that mental battle that I would say is where it becomes definitely a little bit more work than, it does just like a hobby or like something that's like I just really enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. You're a problem solver, I'm guessing. You like to fix, if there's a problem, it kind of hangs over your head.
Mhm.
And then when you play an instrument, sometimes you have a problem for like years.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes it's not a small problem. It's like, for me, it's an ongoing process that I'm working on my breathing and taking deeper breaths. And my teacher always says like, not in a mean way, but how could you not know how to breathe? Like, uh, we know how to breathe when we're born. Otherwise, we would just die.
Mhm.
But I totally get what you mean when you have something like that where you have to work on it every day and you don't necessarily know if more time is going to fix the issue. It's you got to experiment with more strategies, and an instrument is sort of like a wild animal that you have to tame, and we spend years trying to do that. How long have you played trombone? Is it 12 years?
So really, if it's since sixth grade, so probably approaching about a decade or so, I'd
Yeah.
say. Getting close.
And would you say you know how to play the trombone now? You're done?
No way.
Yeah.
Not even close.
What is that like getting yourself to practice? Do you have to, would you say you're disciplined about it or are you motivated? Does it go in and out? Do you have like the carrot or the stick? What was that like for you daily?
I try to be a little bit more fluid. One of the things that he always says is that every single day you're a brand new player. So my warm-ups are always pretty consistently the same. But of course emphasizing sort of areas that might not feel good that day.
Hmm.
And and then once I kind of figure out where I'm feeling that day, then my fundamentals are focused on kind of where it feels weaker. And a lot of things I work on in my practice, especially now, is to do with efficiency.
Mm.
Efficiency for bass players, basically how long we can play, how comfortable we can play for a certain duration of time.
Hmm.
Um, is something that we're all striving to have. I mean, we hear these professional players able to play these very intense concerts or recitals for a very long time and be able to keep what Professor Mulcahy always calls a 10 sound, your golden sound.
Mm.
And, for me personally, whenever I'm in the practice room, that's something that I'm always striving to do, always trying to find, maybe
Mhm.
some days more successfully than others.
Yeah, and I bet you feel like a much different player than when you started your undergrad, as far as like what you can get done in a practice session, not wasting time, things like that.
Yeah, of course. And,
Yeah.
sometimes it can change day to day, kind of like how I mentioned a little bit before. I'm a little bit more fluid with my practice sessions. Like sometimes I usually prefer practicing in the morning and I usually try to find whatever time maybe it might work between classes or before an ensemble. But then, when it comes to session two, which usually I always call that the true practice session, where, it can span, like, depending on how much I play, like, I'm okay with sometimes maybe only getting 30 minutes that day, but it's very focused, it's very direct on exactly what I'm wanting to do. And like,
Mhm.
there's zero breaks. And, sometimes I feel like I can get more done in 30 minutes and sometimes an hour and a half, you know?
Yeah, totally agree. I've told you, but I'm taking a class called the Science of Practicing Music
Mhm.
this year, and I didn't realize before practicing music is actually a thing you can study, and there's right ways and wrong ways to do it that aren't just someone's opinion, but uh, it's the brain learning any skill like anything else. And a lot of the running things over and over again, your brain just sweeps it away overnight if it's not novel. So there's ways you can change it, like altering the rhythm or altering the tempo randomly or doing random lines instead of like straight through. Your brain has to focus on it and then it works better the next day. Um, so I'm still trying to implement those kinds of things, even though I've been playing flute for 13 years, I think, at this point. But they don't really teach you how to practice when you start. It's just like you're in band, practice this, and maybe do your scales if you're like a really good student. But yeah, I think there's lots of ways we can be more efficient in our practicing. And then also you mentioned that you focus on more of your weak spots when you practice,
Mhm.
which is good. There's this temptation to just play the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Like I like playing fast stuff. I just want, if I could, I would just drill my fingers all day, like practicing
Yeah.
fast things. But what I need to work on is uh, papers and long notes, breathing, which is not necessarily what I want to practice. But you're not rigid, but you're still very motivated.
Mhm.
And I want to ask you about this because you've had a lot of success so far with orchestral auditions. But you won an orchestra job and you decided to step away,
Mhm.
which is really interesting.
Yeah.
I want to hear about that. But first, was winning an orchestra job kind of something you put on a pedestal, like a dream come true? I tend to feel that way. Was it like that for you?
Excuse me. Yeah, I would say that in terms of winning an orchestra job, yeah, that is like for me, that's the end goal,
Hmm.
right? We all have sort of sub goals, like the first job, and then kind of continuing to progress as musicians, as artists, right? But for me, in the end, I would love to see myself in an orchestra position, maybe with the top 15 orchestra or higher. And it definitely felt like winning, having a chance to actually play with the Mississippi Symphony. At least for that season, it really did feel like that, this dream actually really maybe can be attainable.
Hmm.
And the funny story that, with that, victory is, we maybe could call that is, that actually came a week after a really tough loss. I was auditioning for West Point that previous week. I was thankfully very invited to play, um, in their live round. And I went in there. I thought I played the first two well, but then, I just kind of succumbed the nerves a little bit and had a bit of problems with the face just not doing what I wanted to do. And, it was a job I really, really wanted.
Hmm.
Now I had different reasons for, wanting it at that time than, maybe I might have now, but, it was an audition that really meant a lot to me. And so, but one of those things I try to do after every audition is, okay, what did not go right? And in what way did I play in the audition room that was different than how I normally play it in the practice room for mock auditions that, yield better results? And I made I made some some pretty big adjustments.
Would you mind sharing some of those things you notice?
Sure. So notice in terms of in the audition room or
Just like if you were advising someone else taking orchestral auditions, what are the big things that you had to change to see more success?
yeah. So of course this varies for everybody.
Mhm.
So the first thing I would say is the most important is know yourself. Right. So I've tried a bunch of different ways of trying to kind of calm that nerves in the room. I tried to do deep breaths into the nose, out to the mouth, tried to really overhydrate and also just give myself some time to kind of meditate and think. And
Mhm.
some of those I had some varying successes. I feel like for the audition before even the West Point audition, the Army Field Band audition, I feel like that was the closest I was able to get to be able to mimic how maybe I sounded in the practice room, the audition room without any sort of third party additives. But um, I still wasn't quite pleased with some of the responses I was getting, especially when it comes to muscles sort of twitching whenever adrenaline really kind of flows to the body. And so for me, what really helped me and kind of my own personal adjustment really was beta blockers for me personally. It was something that I heard about and that I felt like, instead of discounting it, since what I'm doing currently is not working, just to go ahead and try it and see how it goes. And, the first audition I took, it was the best I've ever played.
Mhm.
It was
And for all the moms listening who think that you're on drugs, can you explain what beta blockers are and that you're not weird and that a lot of musicians do them?
Yes, so beta blockers, to basically put it in the most simple way, it blocks I believe it's the hormone or the signal that goes from the brain that's kind of like, hey, you're in danger, or hey, there's something really stressful going on. I need to pump all this adrenaline in you to, it's kind of like a fight or flight
Yeah, it's trying to
response.
protect you. It thinks that you're going to be eaten by a tiger. But that's not
Exactly.
helpful when we're trying to play really, exact technical things and air and heart rate and all of that.
Yeah, because I mean, any amounts of tension in the body makes a big difference in your sound output and even sometimes your musical output. And so with the beta blockers, it allows you to stay calm,
Mhm.
stay focused, and in a lot of ways be a lot more precise and a lot more things are just a lot more predictable. Now,
Mhm.
there are some side effects of beta blockers that you need to keep in mind. Like you need to make sure to really
Yeah, we're not doctors and this is not
Yep.
advice.
Not
Not
advice, not advice, but I've always found, using a dry mouth spray or really hydrating can really help mitigate those effects, but all it really is just blocking out the adrenaline and just trying to keep yourself calm, collected, and focused throughout
Mhm.
the audition.
Yeah. And also, some people don't have the amped up adrenaline heart rate response. I definitely have that as well. I haven't tried beta blockers yet, but something I would definitely consider because
Mhm.
I've started taking orchestral auditions this year, and I did about 4 of them. And the main feeling I had is when I walk into the room, I just don't have control over my body anymore. Like especially noticing my heart rate, and you can't control your air, and it's hard to do like fingers and technique when you have no air. So it's definitely something I would consider. Some people have the opposite reaction. You know about this?
No, no,
Okay.
you should share.
So some people feel like they're falling asleep when they're so that I've heard, like our bodies have different ways of dealing with stuff. It's like shut down or go like way too much. And so those people have been told to run up the stairs before taking or before performing. Sounds just crazy to me.
That's really funny, actually.
So I think the main things, if I were giving advice to someone who is nervous for performing, first of all, make sure that you've prepared adequately.
Mhm.
So, like, you cannot skip knowing your part. And then from there, even if you know it really well, just know that your body's going to do weird things when you're in front of people. And it's not like your fault or anything, but you can desensitize yourself to it. There's a reason exposure therapy exists for all sorts of things. If you just practice mock auditions playing in front of people, eventually your body will learn like thing happens. So I don't need to send this response so much. Yeah, mock auditions, prepare really well. And then for auditions specifically, you can imagine in your mind, imagine walking into the room and seeing the music stand and seeing the sheet if it's a blind audition and you can't see the judges. And then you might find when you just imagine it, your heart rate still goes up. And that's good. It's like if it happens then, it'll happen less in real life.
Mhm.
Do you use utilizing or mock auditions and things like that to
Yeah.
desensitize yourself as well?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love one thing I really love, and we were going to try to do that in the studio here. Unfortunately, we weren't able to kind of line up with schedules, but we were going to try to basically recreate almost the exact conditions of the audition room. Like we would have a screen, we'd have people behind the screen taking notes and things like that. And I think that
Throwing
really,
tomatoes at you.
yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
know, yeah.
You know, I really think that probably is one of the most valuable things you could do is recreate your audition environment as close as you possibly can. Play in a big room, play with a screen with people listening. You know, recreate the list or maybe make like a random order. Just trying to recreate those conditions as much as you can. And if you continue to expose yourself to it, you know, it could numb yourself down to where that you get in, you know, you get in the room and you're just like, real audition. It's like, oh, this is nothing that I haven't done before. There's nothing scary about this. I know what to do.
Yeah, and I feel like the other part is the way you talk to yourself matters. I'm notoriously kind of a negative person, optimistic about the future and mankind and technology and all that. Tend to be pessimistic personally, but there's actually research on the way that you talk to yourself, and it doesn't help you to be negative.
No.
Sometimes it can feel like if you say something negative, you're saying it before someone else can say it about you, and you're trying to protect yourself like that. But the best thing you can do when you're practicing, if you're frustrated, if you're working on something and you're not getting it, is to say, hey, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm practicing to fix this skill, and I'm doing the work, and that's awesome. And like, that's it. All this sounds so bad, I'm never going to get it. I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented, whatever. That stuff, it literally does not help you.
No.
And yeah, I think that, does your teacher talk about mindset and self-talk, or is it kind of like we're playing the horn, we're playing scales?
You know, we don't hear, well, no, actually that's a lie. So in terms of mindset, you know, one thing that Professor Mulcahy and, you know, all the other professors too, Professor Ray, Professor Capshaw, you know, Professor Haas, you know, a lot of the things that they really kind of try to instill in us is just simple. Be very simple. Don't overcomplicate it. I'm personally definitely a bit of an overcomplicator, being sort of a problem solver.
Yeah.
Whenever something goes wrong, you know, I sometimes get a little bit too bogged in the weeds of, oh, what's my face doing? What's this side of my embouchure doing? What's my air doing? Instead of just playing the trombone. And, you know, it's something I'm still working on that, you know, I get told every lesson, you know, it's just like, think less, think simple, just play the horn, have your ideal sound in your head and try to project that as best as you can.
Yeah, I have definitely been told a few times in lessons, it's not rocket science. Like, musicians are usually pretty smart, and that's good. But like you said, sometimes we can make things too complicated. And also, have you ever thought about how it's kind of a ridiculous thing we've chosen, music, because it's never perfect. It's never finished. Even if it's good, someone else might not like it. And music is the kind of thing you can have an opinion about. And like, if you don't like it, there's literally nothing I can do. We need other people to like it and validate us in order to pay us so we can live. How do you deal with that?
You know, I kind of see it as a bit of the beauty in music, right? Especially with live performances. Attending live performances is such a great opportunity, a great gift, because, you know, yeah, it's like, it's never going to be the same. There's always going to be something different, some maybe different musical interpretation, maybe something unexpected happens in a live performance, you know. And then, you know, maybe some sort of interpretation is different than the concert before it, where people maybe have a different idea or a different emotion on what they just heard. You know, I like, well, you know, maybe sometimes it can be very unpredictable. I do think that's like some of the beauty in music, especially live performances.
Yeah. Do you think there's any truth to when a performer makes a mistake, it kind of humanizes them and they become more interesting versus this perfect robot that's like, even if it sounds nice, it's kind of nice when they make a mistake.
I mean, definitely. And I think morally in the sense too that you can't just predict what's going to happen next, right? It's like if a performer makes a mistake, it also just shows like, yeah, they're human and we're all trying to get better for ourselves. But then also too, it's like, it's not this lip syncing things that you sometimes normally see on maybe like in pop culture or television or wherever we kind of
social media when things are just
media.
Perfect looking.
Yeah, I mean, because social media, you know, sometimes it's like makeup for musicians. Sometimes where sometimes, you know, it's not a true representation of themselves. Really, it's just kind of the most most idealistic, which is
Yeah.
why, it's like many things you see on social media. You always need to keep with a bit of a grain of salt. And, and with live performances too, it's like humanization part, it's like it keeps you interested too.
Yeah.
Because, you can't just be like, oh, well, this is going to happen next. And, this exact thing's going to occur, it could keep you on your toes, maybe, and be a little more interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And on the social media thing, I've told you before, I don't look at Instagram when it's springtime because everyone's just getting into Juilliard and posting about it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's another thing in music is comparing yourself to other people
Mhm.
is just useless.
Mhm.
When I was taking auditions this year and having not really having success with it, honestly, other than it is successful that I just want to start doing them and survive and then learn from them and move on. But I was getting in my head comparing myself to people who've had more success. But my teacher was telling me stories about some of the greatest like, giant big name flute players, and some of them to take 30 auditions to get anything. And some of them were way older than I am now when they finally got their career. But the important thing was that they just loved playing the flute and they were going to just keep doing it. And then also, another thing my teacher says is practicing is sort of rewarding in and of itself if you like what you're doing. And there's a point when it gets kind of onerous to prepare for auditions when you get into that negative frame of like, I'm playing this and I'm not hearing it for myself. I'm hearing it as if I were a judge on the panel already critiquing it.
Mhm.
And that's the voice that I'm talking to myself here. That's the voice you need to get out of your head when you step into an audition. You need to walk in there like $1,000,000. They would be lucky to have me. I deserve to play with them.
Yeah, I mean, because I think sometimes it can affect your music making.
For sure.
A lot of we look at maybe this is a little bit apples and oranges, but Mahler's music is written a very specific way based off of a lot of times what he was thinking or things that's happened in his life.
Hmm.
Right. We can hear this a lot in, his Second Symphony, The Resurrection. We can hear a lot of those things and some of the motifs that are in there. But like in a similar way, whenever we're playing and we're just thinking nothing but negative thoughts, I feel like a lot of times it just kind of can maybe sometimes sound a little bit more musically dead. And, that is something I'm also trying to work on too, because, none of us can always be technically perfect, but, we always try to have that standard as much as we can. But, I find myself sometimes, and kind of molding a little bit of my weakness whenever I don't have that kind of technical proficiency I want in a performance that, sometimes I hear my musicality maybe gets a little bit more reserved, a little bit degraded because, sometimes whenever you're thinking those things, you maybe sometimes get a little bit afraid of making mistakes. And then, you maybe play things a little bit safer than, maybe you should, to where, the music sometimes maybe loses its voice.
Yeah, and I've heard from some people on audition panels where they have to hear you play Mozart or they hear 100 people play it. So if you're playing it safe, uh, yeah, they're not going to move you on to the next round. So it's like how to bring enough of your personality, but then not too much that they cross you off. It's hard to know where the line is.
And also too, it probably will not sound a lot like Mozart if you're playing it safe.
Yeah, I think so. And this music that we're playing is hundreds of years old, and part of me is like, do we need to play it exactly as it's supposed to be if we're the 1,000th person playing this? Like for an audition, probably yes, but for recital and for being a music student, I feel like it's worth the risk to just put your personality into it and see what happens.
Yeah, sometimes that can be really rewarding because you might be able to put out a product that maybe you've never been able to expect that you're actually able to achieve. I feel like
Mhm.
one of my in terms of a competition experience that really kind of showed me that was the American Trombone Workshop last year. At that time, I was just excited to be there. I was just thankful about making the finals and just excited about having a performance opportunity that, I feel like that was one of the few performance opportunities I've had where I felt like at that point, I'm just going to let go. I'm going to just focus purely on my musical message, intentions, and I'm just not going to think about my playing. And frankly, it was one of the most memorable performances of my career. Not only because I was able to win the competition, but also because I got done with that and I was like, that was exactly the message I wanted to put across. Regardless of any of the mistakes I made, I felt like I had a statement, I had a message, and it was and it went exactly, in that message specifically how I'd hoped to put it across.
Hmm. Yeah, that's such a good feeling.
Mm,
Yeah, there's a lot of parts of day-to-day life practicing and being nervous and worrying about money and that kind of thing. Then sometimes from the outside it can wonder, are we crazy? Why are we doing this?
yeah.
But it's kind of hard to explain how performing can feel sometimes. So there's moments like that where you feel like you're getting your message across and it's like really unique and really personal to you. For me, I have this feeling when I'm performing sometimes that I can't be anywhere else and I can't think of anything else because it's right at the level I have to focus like all of me,
Mm,
like a true flow state kind of, which is kind of, it's like therapy for a person who also overthinks and
yeah.
complicates things. And then also just, I can't think of a performance where I had that feeling you just described.
Mm,
Like sometimes I get kind of there where you stop thinking about all the little technical things and you get a more of an image in your ear of
mm,
what you want it to sound like. Weirdly, in the research on this actually works better for people when they're performing. You don't want them to think about their fingers anymore. You want them to think about what it sounds like in the room.
yeah.
And it helps with nervousness as well. But I think that's kind of the height of musicianship, to have that feeling,
Yeah.
like just personally satisfied about performance.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, it really was one of the only instances.
Hmm.
I hope to have more of those in the future, and I'm sure I will. But it was just one of those few instances where I went through that, and I was like, this is why I do what I do.
Hmm.
Is for moments like these.
Do you think you can recreate that?
No, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure one day I probably could. It's just kind of remembering that sometimes you just gotta let go and you just gotta focus on the message you're trying to put out instead of, maybe oh, I half chipped this note, or
Hmm.
oh, I didn't quite come in on time, or that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I want to get back to your story because I fully sidetracked us, and it
Mm.
also turned into like therapy, which is great. But so you won an orchestra job.
Mm.
Then what was it like actually doing the orchestra job? You had this picture in your mind? Was it like what you expected? Was it awesome? Like,
It actually was really great. I mean, I loved the part that was my favorite for one was just being able to join a collection of musicians that have a lot of experience that I know that I can learn from.
mhm,
The moment I stepped into ensemble, I was like, I'm just going to become a sponge. I'm going to take the influence from everyone around me that's been in the orchestra for 10, 20, 30 years,
mhm,
almost going on through retirement. um just seeing how they interpret things, and kind of see how that maybe contrasts from like my school orchestra,
mhm,
because the school orchestra, everyone's still learning, everyone's still kind of trying to figure themselves out.
mhm.
um
What was different?
well, it was the biggest thing I could probably say is maturity. Sound production was really big. The thing I noticed immediately in the strings, the strings all had a uniform sound. They had the same color, and the way they moved together, just it was really impressive. And first concert cycle, we played Ravel Bolero, and we had one other piece I can't quite remember that we played.
Mhm.
And then we had Pines of Rome.
Okay.
Now, I don't know why it took me a while to
So-
think of that, but yeah. So it was it was Ravel's Bolero, Pines of Rome, and it was one other piece for that I wasn't on.
Mhm.
And the thing I really noticed in the Pines of Rome was just that really kind of struck out to me. Well, for one, was we were able to play out of the first rehearsal, and I was like, well, I'm just ready for the concert. It feels like at this point.
I know we rehearsed so much in school.
Yeah.
Like we were just in the contemporary music ensemble, and what was it like for the first concert? 4 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Four
about 4
weeks,
weeks.
3 rehearsals each week for 2 hours each, and yeah. Can you remember your first rehearsal with the professional group? Like, were you nervous going in, and what was it like?
Yeah.
First note.
Yeah, I was definitely nervous going in. I definitely try to educate myself as much as I can on the repertoire going in. Luckily, both of the repertoires playing I was already very familiar with. But just so before each concert cycle, we got an email on kind of a lot of the reference recordings that they wanted us to use. And so listening to those reference recordings, doing like a little bit of score studying to make sure that I'm kind of caught up on who comes in where and where I need to move my musical line when I have it. I was nervous, but I came prepared. And first rehearsal, um, there was, of course, there were some section things because my friend Jude, who won the principal trombone position at that same audition, he won principal, I won the runner up,
Hmm.
which was to be appointed second.
Did you guys like arm wrestle after to make up for it?
No, I mean we actually had a really great time. I felt like we got along actually
Mm.
really, really well. It's great meeting Jude, great playing with him. He still plays in the orchestra currently
Okay.
as their full trombone member.
Mhm.
But one of the things going in is that we were able to make some great sounds, but afterwards too, since it was a pretty new section, since both the second and the first trombone players were new, and of course the bass trombone and the tubist, they were both very established. They've been in the
Mhm.
orchestra for over 25 years. They're used to kind of a different section in the way they played. We kind of had to do a bit of adjusting on our own to kind of see, okay, how can we fit in better in the orchestra,
Mhm.
and how can we kind of merge our sounds to, make a full group, and of course working with the trumpets as well, who are, of course sitting next to us.
Mhm.
Personal trumpet Devon and second trumpet Sebastian. They're absolutely great to work with. And, first cycle was very much just us doing a lot of work on what is our section sound going to sound like. Me and Jude also, a lot of times there's a lot of unison parts in the Pines of Rome between the first and second trombone. So, we spent a lot of time backstage just going through and making sure that our unisons were in tune. And we also had kind of the same idea of what kind of line we wanted to create whenever that moment came to us.
And were you guys one of the few younger people in the group? What was the age range like?
Yeah, we definitely were the few of the younger people. So between us, we were probably I think I was about 21, 22 at the time. Jude
Mhm.
was about 24. I would say the average age of the orchestra was probably over 45.
Was there any weirdness there? Did you feel like an outsider?
I this is something I was very appreciative of
Mhm.
time there. We were welcomed with open arms, and we actually were invited to several events after the concerts. To actually get to hang out with some of
Mm.
some of the people in the orchestra, and it really never felt like we were kind of outsiders a little bit. Also, the trumpets were a little bit younger as well. They were in their mid-20s also. So we did have some familiar aged people with us, but I felt that the orchestra, they did a great job welcoming us younger people, making us feel very, very included. And it was a really nice environment. I will say one thing that was pretty funny though, is I had two of my professors were also playing in that orchestra. And so it's kind of funny playing with my
Oh my
professors
gosh.
and just being like, "Professor, how are you doing?
What's up?
Lovely weather we're having."
How nice it is to be colleagues here.
I know, right? It was definitely something I had to get used to a little bit, but I mean, of course, it doesn't change, teacher and student. But it was sort of a fun thing to be able to. I felt like I was able to get to know some of my professors, a lot closer than I would have just in a normal school environment.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. I only asked because I have heard from conductors specifically that big orchestras don't want to hire people who are out of school
Mhm.
or even not out of school, but just younger because there's this weird hierarchy thing with the musicians not wanting to take instruction from someone they see as younger than them.
Mhm.
And so I was just hoping it was not the same in the actual orchestra sections as well.
Mhm.
Because I mean, you were young, but that doesn't mean you're immature or you're not there trying to do the best that you can, and maybe even more so because you're not established and you kind of have to prove yourself. It
Mhm.
feels like.
Yeah, thankfully I wasn't subject to that experience.
Mhm.
I have heard some of the things that you were just saying with some just maybe some minor clashing or even major clashing between different age ranges. I was very thankful that we didn't have that experience at all, and I mean we were just very welcome to the orchestra whenever we were there for the first day.
Oh, that's really good. And then, so when you won this job, you were obviously thrilled, but you kind of saw it as a stepping stone to bigger orchestra, or because you decided to leave and go back to school, obviously.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to do that?
Well, so again, I really enjoyed my time in the orchestra. I felt like it was such a valuable experience getting all that time and really kind of getting a taste of the environment. For me, yeah, it was very much a stepping stone for me in that I can do it. This is how I was able to do it.
Mhm.
Um, but I felt that there was just still more growing I need to do. And, and for me to be okay with kind of settling into one place, there were just a few things I wanted to be able to accomplish first. At that time I haven't been to a conservatory. I haven't had, I was very appreciative of the training I got from Professor Dr. Ben McElwain, but I also felt like I really wanted to experience being in the environment we have here, being in, to be around these and hear these great musicians, every day, every weekend, get to see the Chicago Symphony every weekend, get to listen to the Chicago Brass Quintet, be taught by some of the world's greatest pedagogues, especially Professor Mulcahy, who in the trombone world is very renowned for his pedagogy, for a lot of the ways he approaches trombone, especially with like tuba mirum in particular. He's kind of like the connoisseur of like, this is how you play tuba mirum. And I wanted to have a chance to experience that before I felt like, okay, I think it's okay I settled down here, because it's like I want to have the fullness in training so that when I leave school, I have those resources to me, not only in connections, but also in how I can teach myself as I go through my own career.
Yeah. For those who don't know, we're both will be the first year of our master's program over. It's a 2-year program. So you have one more year. I feel like it's going by very quickly. I don't know about
I
you.
do.
So, but you think you've seen massive changes in your approach to trombone and your life just from a year? And is that mostly because of your teacher or this kind of lifestyle of like, we are music students, we do music all day?
Yeah, I'd like to give a lot of credit to my teachers.
Hmm.
I feel like that I wouldn't have been able to make nearly the amount of progress I have if it hadn't been for, all my amazing professors that have given me all these resources and all these different ideas to approach and tackle the instrument. I mean, just listening for my very first lesson, even my lesson when I was visiting versus my most recent lesson, I mean, it really is like a night and day difference in terms of how I sound as a player and how I approach, especially in terms of the sound concept that is present here and the beat in school, and also just like with a lot of what the professors teach.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy that I bet you didn't expect you could improve so much?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
not at all. I mean, especially not at the rate that I have here. I mean, I kind of say like I kind of think of it as like the amount of time I've improved here in a year. I feel like in many other places it would have taken me 2 or maybe 2.5 years to get to that same point.
Yeah, I think being in the right environment, having people around you to just absorb, not even just about technical knowledge, but about the whole attitude and work ethic and all of that. I was going to ask you if there was some part of you that thought you were making the wrong decision to leave your job, because at music school, in the flute studio especially, but probably same for other instruments, there's this feeling that getting an orchestra job is kind of impossible. It's almost like it's the punchline of a joke. But I I think you're accurate in seeing that your ceiling was higher and that investing in some more education, and also you were so young. Like if you had achieved your dream and you were to go at 21 and you have 80 years of your life left, I just feel like it's just worth it to take the risk.
Yeah, and also too, it's like you don't want to limit your growth.
Yeah.
It's like it's always looking and seeing like the ceiling's higher. Now, of course, we obviously have to eventually, get to a job and be like, okay, this is where I'll be for a little bit. But I still felt that at that time there were still higher mountains I can climb,
Hmm.
and that that job really helped me, gave me a lot of experiences I wouldn't have had otherwise. That I knew that I was going to be able to take farther if I'm able to continue that and kind of going the conservatory route and,
Hmm.
continually taking auditions from there on.
Yeah. And I also think maybe people can tell this far, you're a very positive person.
Mhm.
Like your attitude is positive. Um, and I think that's a big help to you, especially in this field where we talked about like being negative. I mean, have you always been that way, kind of positive personally? And
Well, I've always tried to think glass half full instead of half empty. And now obviously, it's not always going to be like that. Like sometimes, I've had my fair share of losses to where, I've definitely had to kind of think, is this something I really can do? Especially in the grad school circuit, there were some grad schools I thought that I was, definitely going to be able to get into that would be like a safe bet for me that I actually ended up getting rejected from.
Mhm.
And that was something that it's like it took me definitely a bit of thinking and a bit of kind of just like going through and be like, all right, am I worthy of this? Am I worthy of keeping going? So it's always good to be kind of constructive and realistic on like your current situation, but it's also just as important too of seeing like where you can go if you invest your effort in the right place.
Yeah, and there's also this feeling that you have to win something right now. You have
Mm,
to every performance you have to prove yourself, and it doesn't matter all the other performances you've done. It starts clean. It matters what everyone else thinks. But I similarly I had rejections from grad school and rejections from undergrads before that. And so has every musician. Even the greatest musician ever, you couldn't believe they would ever get rejected from something. It's just literally part of the business. We get really good at rejections.
mm,
I think part of that it has to do with your identity as a musician and also your ego. I've heard from someone that they totally detach their ego from themselves.
mm,
So it works really well when they get rejected because it's not about them as a person.
yeah,
But then hypothetically, you don't really get to enjoy the reward either because
mm,
this person's a trumpet player. So trumpet's just a thing that they do. It's not like them as a musician. And it sounds like good advice. I would have to meditate on that some
mm.
more. How do you think about your identity and your ego and your musicianship?
I think it's all about a balance,
Yeah.
just like everything in life. You need to have a balance of trombone is a lot about what I do, and it's a lot about my identity as a person. But also too, I try to make sure that whenever it comes to my successes too, that it's a product of hard work in my field, but it's not gonna but any failures isn't also gonna be something that I know it's like, oh, I'm not worthy, or it's not something that's gonna like hurt my self-worth, because I feel like the only instance where you really should feel down about yourself is if you feel like you haven't really just truly put in the effort. And I think effort and self-worth, it's like you should always feel, of course, like self-worth about yourself, but it's all about the effort that you put into things. And so with trombone, like, regardless of any failures I've had, if I know that I put in the effort to it, that I know that there's nothing more I could do, and that I gave it my best shot, and that I didn't leave anything else on the table.
hmm Yeah, I think it's like anything. There's no point being upset about the things you can't control.
Mhm.
And it's actually a relief that probably if you're not getting this external reward, there's probably something in the process you can change. Like when you came to grad school here and there's so many things that have changed and you feel you've improved so much. Um, or if you're truly getting information from the world that you are not good enough for this specific thing, in a way, that's also kind of good news to have figured that out. Or it's kindness for a caring teacher to tell you, like, it's not going to work for you versus watching you struggle and fail. Um, I mean, it's going to hurt a lot, but then you get to do something else. And I tend to think that people obviously have different talents. And if you have fully exhausted one, it's actually good news. You get to move on and do something else that maybe you're better at, but also maybe you enjoy more. Um, I don't think I see a lot of people just suffering.
Mhm.
Um, because a lot of young people, they get into music for the wrong reasons, like their parents force them and they're trying to win and all that. I just think in general, suffering is information that you need to change something. Either like you don't have to fully change course, but you can change something in your approach or your routine or get advice from someone else. Like life's not supposed to hurt.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's also very important, just be honest with yourself.
hmm
Being able to, because I think really importantly, it's like we all love music, and we all have we have varying reasons for why we got into the field, but a lot of us also share a similar reason, that we want to make music, and we want to be able to do that kind of outreach to other people. But I think most importantly, it's like you need when it comes to sort of that instance where it's like knowing if you can or can't, or maybe if you might need to do a bit of a course correction.
hmm
It's I feel like the most important thing is be able to objectively beat yourself in the mirror and try to take as much. I mean, obviously, emotion's always going to be there, but try to put as much emotion out of the equation as you can, and just try to be honest with yourself. Because if you're able to be honest with yourself and be able to actually critically, look at yourself in the mirror and kind of see how things are going and be very objective about it, I think it could save yourself from a lot of heartache in the future.
Yeah, and say to take the emotion out of it.
Mhm.
But if you're a person who has an emotional reaction, I don't think you need to stop that necessarily. Just
No.
literally know that about yourself that you need a few hours or a day before you make any decisions.
Yeah, it's just trying to eliminate any biases that, could maybe make yourself make a decision that maybe might not be as healthy for you as, something else might be.
Yeah, I think just throughout my time as a music student, I've learned a lot about myself. And one thing is, when something negative happens, I tend to think that it's forever and it's
Mhm.
everything. So when I get rejections from something, I need a day before I make any decisions.
Yeah.
Because in the moment, it's like, I'm going to quit. I'm not good enough,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know that about myself. And then also, if you can objectively list your strengths and weaknesses on your instrument without kind of dispassionately,
Mhm.
like blah, 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 I'm working on my air, fingers are good. It's always good to analyze yourself as if you don't know who you are. It's why we record ourselves, so we can see, like, it sounds a certain way in my head when I'm playing, but when I listen to it, it sounds different. And I think it's funny because music is like this artistic, emotional thing, but we're really technicians
Mhm.
all day, like trying to figure out really small things and really small changes. And I know brass players spend hours doing just like fundamentals, and flute, we do a lot of fundamentals as well. But yeah, I think this is a lot of things people don't know about behind the scenes,
Oh,
off stage kind
oh
of
yeah,
thing.
definitely. I mean, there's some things that people put on like social media or like musicians try to put out.
Mm.
Because, it's like social media, like sometimes can be a bit of like someone's brand and, it depends. And everyone kind of treats it differently. But, um, with that sort of thing, it's like, yeah, there's so much more that happens, behind the screen. I'd like to kind of
Yeah.
think of it as,
We're looking for a name for the podcast. Maybe it'll be behind the screen
like
or off stage, something like that.
off stage is a good one. I like that one.
I think that's a good one. Um, yeah, we're nearing the end of our time, but I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's been so great. Um, what's next for you? What are you working on?
Well, right now, getting towards the summer, I'm kind of my foot off the gas a little bit and just kind of trying to give myself a little bit more time to rest so that I can kind of recharge. Because, of course, the end of the school year is always one of the toughest times because we're when we're the most busy, we're the most playing. We got recitals, we
Mhm.
got performances. Um,
You
so
mean
right
musicians take breaks? It's
well,
crazy.
believe it or not, we do in fact take breaks. So for me, I've dialed back the practice a little bit and just kind of taken it a little bit easy so I can have a bit of chop repair, a bit of self repair a little bit because we all
Yeah.
need that from time to time.
Yeah, it just like mental reflection and having a break so that you actually are motivated to come back
Yeah,
and do things differently.
exactly. And
Yep.
and from that mental break, I'm gonna be coming home for a little bit, spending some time with family over the summer. Now trombone is still coming with me. I still need to stay. The goal is to stay in shape, but you not have to practice all the time. But then, the main thing for me right now coming up next is getting ready for Tanglewood. Tanglewood is coming up in about three-ish weeks in about late June. So basically, just preparing myself for that. And then also, I was thankfully invited to West Point Audition again coming up in this August. So I'm going to be preparing for that list as well as potentially the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra Pops personal trombone position. That's also going to be coming up that I plan on preparing for.
Okay. So sounds like you'll be busy.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching The Practice Room. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Also, contact me on Instagram or my website if you would like to be a guest or would like to suggest a guest. Links in the description. Thank you.